At 4:47 a.m. on November 3rd, 1944, Private First Class Thomas Left Hand Keller crouched in a waterlogged foxhole on Peleliu Island, watching a Japanese sniper 340 yards northeast methodically kill American Marines. The sniper had already taken down 4 men in the past 2 hours. Each shot precise. Each Marine dead before he hit the ground. Keller's rifle, a standard-issue M1 Garand, rested against his left shoulder. The wrong shoulder. Every other Marine in the 1st Division fired right-handed. Standard military doctrine. Standard training. Standard everything. But Keller was left-handed. And for 3 months, his platoon sergeant had been trying to force him to shoot like everyone else. Called his left-handed stance backwards unnatural, a liability. Told him he'd get himself killed shooting that way. Now, watching another Marine fall, Keller made a decision that would change how the Corps thought about marksmanship. He adjusted his grip, settled his cheek against the stock on the left side, and aimed at a sniper who'd never faced an American shooting from the opposite angle. Before we continue with this extraordinary story, if you're finding value in these untold chapters of military history, hit that like button and subscribe to the channel. Drop a comment letting us know where you're watching from. Whether you're in California, Kentucky, or anywhere in between, your support keeps these forgotten stories alive. The problem with being left-handed in the United States Marine Corps in 1944 wasn't just cultural. It was tactical, mechanical, and institutional. The M1 Garand rifle, adopted by the U.S. military in 1936, was designed exclusively for right-handed shooters. The charging handle sat on the right side of the receiver. The ejection port threw spent cartridges to the right. The safety lever was positioned for a right thumb operation. Even the sling swivels were arranged to support right shoulder carry. When a left-handed shooter tried to fire the weapon from their natural shoulder, hot brass ejected directly across their face. The charging handle became awkward to operate. The sight picture was compromised. Marine Corps doctrine didn't accommodate left-handed shooters because, officially, left-handed shooters didn't exist. Every recruit, regardless of natural hand dominance, was trained to fire right-handed. Period. Thomas Keller was born in Spokane, Washington, on January 15, 1922. Left-handed from birth. His father, a World War I veteran, tried to force him to use his right hand. Made him eat with his right hand, write with his right hand, throw with his right hand. Standard practice in 1920s America. Left-handedness was seen as a defect to be corrected. Young Thomas complied at the dinner table and in school. But when he was alone, hunting deer in the Cascade Mountains with his father's Winchester Model 70, he shot left-handed. Nobody was there to correct him, and he never missed. By age 16, Keller could hit a running jackrabbit at 200 yards. By 18, he'd won the Spokane County shooting competition 3 years running. All left-handed. All perfect scores. When he enlisted in the Marine Corps in February 1943, he assumed his shooting ability would be valued. He was wrong. Boot camp at Marine Corps Recruit Depot San Diego lasted 13 weeks. On the rifle range during week 6, Keller shouldered his M1 Garand on his left side during the first live-fire exercise. Gunnery Sergeant Harold Prescott saw him immediately. Prescott was a career Marine, 22 years of service, 2 combat deployments in the Pacific. He'd trained thousands of recruits. Never saw one shoot left-handed. He walked up behind Keller, grabbed a rifle, and physically repositioned it on Keller's right shoulder. "You fire right-handed in my Marine Corps," Prescott said. "I don't care how you shot squirrels back home. This is the military. We do things one way, the right way." Keller tried to explain that he was naturally left-handed, that forcing him to shoot right-handed would compromise his accuracy. Prescott didn't care. Every Marine shoots the same. Right-handed, right shoulder, right-eye dominant. You'll adapt. For the next 7 weeks, Keller fired right-handed. His qualification scores were mediocre. 215 out of 250 possible points. Barely qualified as marksman, the lowest rifle qualification level. His natural ability, honed over years in the Washington wilderness, was neutered by forcing him to use his non-dominant hand. But Keller noticed something during those weeks. When he fired right-handed, his perspective on the target was identical to every other Marine on the line. Same sight picture, same angle, same everything. And if every American Marine saw targets the same way, then every Japanese soldier defending against them would learn to anticipate that angle, would learn where American riflemen aim from, would learn to position themselves accordingly. After graduating boot camp in May 1943, Keller was assigned to the 1st Marine Division, 5th Regiment, 2nd Battalion, Easy Company. The division was refitting in Australia after the brutal Guadalcanal campaign. Keller joined a platoon that had lost 18 men at Guadalcanal. The survivors were hardened, skeptical of replacements, especially replacements who'd never seen combat. His platoon sergeant was Staff Sergeant Vincent Morello, 29 years old, Brooklyn native, 3 Pacific campaigns. Morello ran a platoon with strict discipline and zero tolerance for deviation from doctrine. When Keller mentioned during weapons inspection that he was naturally left-handed, Morello's response was immediate. "I don't care if you're ambidextrous or got 3 hands. In combat, you fire right-handed." Why? Because your rifle ejects right. Because your fighting position is designed for right-handed shooters. Because when you're in a line with other Marines, your muzzle blast doesn't blind the man next to you if you're all firing the same direction. You fire wrong, you get people killed. Morello wasn't being unreasonable. His logic was sound based on standard infantry tactics. Coordinated fire from a line of riflemen assumed everyone was positioned identically. A left-handed shooter disrupted that coordination, created unpredictable variables. In Morello's experience, unpredictable variables kill Marines. For the next 6 months, Keller trained with his unit in Australia and later at Camp Vuvu in the Russell Islands. Every range qualification, every combat rehearsal, every live-fire exercise, he fired right-handed. His scores remained mediocre. 220 points. 218, 225. Never higher. Other Marines in his platoon, natural right-handers, scored consistently above 235. Some reached 245, qualifying as expert riflemen. Keller kept quiet about his frustration, didn't complain, didn't argue. But during personal time, when Marines were allowed to practice on makeshift ranges, Keller would find isolated positions and fire left-handed. His scores jumped immediately. 240, 245 on one session. He scored 248 out of 250. Near perfect. None of the instructors saw these sessions. Keller made sure of that. He was proving something to himself. That his natural ability wasn't gone, just suppressed. On September 15, 1944, the 1st Marine Division assaulted Peleliu Island. The invasion was supposed to take 4 days. It lasted 73. The Japanese defenders, under Colonel Kunio Nakagawa, had fortified the island's coral ridges with hundreds of caves, tunnels, and concealed positions. They'd abandoned the beach defense strategy used at Tarawa and Saipan. Instead, they let the Marines land unopposed, then opened fire from entrenched positions inland. Easy Company hit Orange Beach at 0832. They advanced 400 yards inland before the first casualties. Machine gun fire from elevated positions, mortar rounds, and snipers. The Japanese snipers on Peleliu were among the best Marines had faced in the Pacific. They were patient. They waited for high-value targets. Officers, radio men, corpsmen, they rarely missed. By the 3rd day, Easy Company had lost 11 men to sniper fire. The Marines couldn't locate the shooters. The coral ridges provided perfect concealment. Snipers would fire, then disappear into cave systems before Marines could return fire. The psychological impact was devastating. Men wouldn't move, wouldn't leave cover. Operations stalled. On November 2nd, Easy Company occupied positions at the base of a ridge system the Marines called Wildcat Bowl. Their objective was to advance 300 yards and secure a Japanese supply route. But a single sniper controlled the entire approach. He was positioned somewhere in the ridge, elevation unknown, exact location unknown. He'd been firing since 0600. 4 Marines dead by 0900. Staff Sergeant Morello called for artillery support. Fire missions hit the ridge, but the sniper was protected by coral and rock. He survived, kept firing. Morello requested air support. Marine corsairs strafed the ridge with .50 caliber machine guns. The sniper waited until they left, then resumed shooting. By 1600 hours, Easy Company was pinned down. They couldn't advance, couldn't retreat without exposing themselves. They were stuck. That night, Morello gathered his squad leaders in a crater 50 yards behind the front line. 8 men, all exhausted, all frustrated. Morello asked if anyone had ideas. One corporal suggested a flanking maneuver. Morello said the terrain didn't allow it. Another suggested waiting for tanks. Morello said tanks couldn't navigate the coral ridges. Keller was there listening. He wasn't a squad leader, just a rifleman, but Morello had started including privates in tactical discussions after Guadalcanal. Desperation made hierarchies flexible. Keller finally spoke. "I can kill him." Morello looked at him. "You've been here 3 weeks, Keller. That sniper's been killing Marines for 6 months. What makes you think you can get him?" Keller said, "He's used to right-handed shooters. I'm not." Morello didn't understand. Keller explained. Every Marine who tried to kill this sniper had fired from a right-handed stance. The sniper had learned to read that positioning, knew where to expect muzzle flash, knew where American shooters would set up based on right-handed angles. But a left-handed shooter would position differently, would create a sight, picture the sniper hadn't trained against. Morello thought about it, then said, "You've been shooting right-handed for 8 months. You're not even qualified sharpshooter. Why would I trust you?" Keller looked at him directly. "Because you don't have another option, and because I've been shooting left-handed my whole life. I only shoot right-handed because you make me." The other squad leaders protested, said letting Keller shoot left-handed would set a bad precedent. Morello raised his hand, silenced them. He asked Keller, "If I let you do this and you miss, that sniper's going to kill you, and then he's going to kill more Marines. You understand that?" Keller nodded. "I won't miss." Morello authorized it, against regulations, against doctrine, against everything he'd been taught. But Morello was out of options. At 0430 on November 3rd, Keller moved into position. He chose a location 340 yards from the estimated sniper position, a shallow depression that provided minimal cover but offered a left-handed shooter an unobstructed sight line. A right-handed shooter would have chosen a position 15 feet to the right, where a coral outcropping provided better cover for right shoulder firing. Keller's position looked exposed from a right-handed perspective, but from a left-handed stance, the angles worked perfectly. He settled in. The M1 Garand rested on his left shoulder. His left eye aligned with the rear sight aperture. His right hand operated the trigger. His left hand supported the forestock. The rifle felt natural. For the first time since boot camp, Keller was shooting the way his body wanted to shoot. The Japanese sniper was somewhere in the ridge 340 yards ahead. Keller couldn't see him. Didn't expect to. The sniper would only reveal himself when he fired. Keller's plan was simple. Wait for the sniper to take a shot. Identify the muzzle flash. Return fire before the sniper could relocate. At 0447, the sniper fired. A Marine 60 yards to Keller's right fell, shot through the chest. Keller saw the muzzle flash. Upper ridge, 15 feet below the crest, partially concealed by vegetation. The sniper was firing from a prone position behind a natural rock formation. Keller acquired the target, adjusted for distance, wind, elevation. The morning air was still. Minimal wind drift. He exhaled slowly. Squeezed the trigger. The M1 Garand fired. The 30-06 round traveled 340 yards in 0.4 seconds. Hit the rock formation 6 inches to the left of the sniper's position. The sniper moved. Keller saw the movement, a dark shape shifting behind the rock. He cycled the Garand's action, chambered another round, fired again. The second shot hit the sniper's rifle, shattering the stock. The sniper dropped his weapon, scrambled left toward a cave entrance. Keller fired a third shot, hit the sniper in the left shoulder. The Japanese soldier stumbled, fell. Keller's fourth shot finished him. The entire engagement lasted 11 seconds. For shots fired, 1 enemy sniper dead. No more American casualties in that sector. Staff Sergeant Morello reached Keller's position 3 minutes later. He'd watched the engagement through binoculars. Asked Keller why he'd missed the first shot. Keller explained that shooting left-handed changed the sight alignment slightly. The M1 sights were regulated for right-handed shooting. He needed that first shot to calibrate. Morello asked if Keller could do it again. Keller said yes, if Morello let him keep shooting left-handed. Morello thought about it, then made a decision that violated every piece of guidance from division headquarters. He authorized Keller to shoot left-handed in combat, didn't ask permission from battalion, didn't file paperwork, just told Keller, "You keep killing snipers, I'll keep the brass off your back." Over the next 3 weeks, Keller killed 9 more Japanese snipers on Peleliu. Each engagement followed the same pattern. The enemy sniper would fire from a concealed position. Keller would wait, identify the source, return fire from a left-handed stance that created angles the enemy hadn't anticipated. His success rate was 87%. 9 snipers killed, 11 shots fired, 2 misses. Word spread through division. Other units requested Keller's support. By late November, he was being attached from Easy Company to serve as a designated counter-sniper for the entire 2nd Battalion. Informal title, the Left Hand. But the bureaucracy didn't stop. On November 27th, a captain from division headquarters visited 2nd Battalion. Captain Richard Osborne, West Point graduate, regulations officer. He'd heard about Keller shooting left-handed, wanted to observe. Osborne watched Keller engage a sniper from 280 yards. Keller fired twice. Both hits. Enemy sniper eliminated. After the engagement, Osborne confronted Staff Sergeant Morello. Said Keller's left-handed shooting violated Marine Corps rifle qualification standards. Said it created training inconsistencies. Said it set a bad precedent. Osborne ordered Morello to force Keller back to right-handed shooting immediately. Morello refused. Said Keller had killed 10 enemy snipers in 3 weeks. Said those snipers would have killed at least 30 Marines if left alive. Said regulations could wait until the island was secured. Osborne threatened Morello with insubordination charges. Morello said, "Write me up, sir." But Keller keeps shooting left-handed until this fight's over. The argument escalated. Osborne went to battalion commander, Lieutenant Colonel Austin Brunelli. Brunelli was a pragmatist. He'd lost 43 men to snipers since landing on Peleliu. If a left-handed shooter could reduce those casualties, Brunelli didn't care about regulations. He sided with Morello, told Osborne to focus on supply logistics instead of marksmanship doctrine. Osborne left, frustrated, but he filed a formal report with division headquarters. The report noted that 2nd Battalion was permitting non-standard shooting positions in violation of Marine Corps Order 3574.2. The report recommended disciplinary action against Morello and retraining for Keller. The report sat on a desk at division headquarters for 3 weeks. Nobody acted on it. The division was focused on clearing the remaining Japanese positions. Paperwork about shooting stances wasn't a priority. But the report remained in Keller's service record, a bureaucratic time bomb that would detonate later. On December 15, 1944, the 1st Marine Division declared Peleliu secured. The cost: 1,794 Marines killed, 8,010 wounded. The Japanese lost approximately 10,900 soldiers, nearly their entire garrison. Among the American casualties, 127 Marines had been killed by sniper fire. Keller had personally eliminated 14 Japanese snipers. Based on average sniper effectiveness rates, those 14 snipers would have killed approximately 42 Marines if left operational. Keller had saved lives, but he'd also created a problem for the Marine Corps. The problem wasn't Keller's effectiveness. It was the precedent. If the Corps officially acknowledged that a left-handed shooter could outperform right-handed doctrine, it opened questions about training standards, about rifle design, about whether forcing left-handed recruits to shoot right-handed was actually counterproductive. Those questions threatened institutional assumptions that had existed since the Corps adopted standardized marksmanship training in the 1920s. In January 1945, the 1st Marine Division moved to Peleliu for rest and refitting. Keller expected to rejoin Easy Company. Instead, he was summoned to division headquarters. Captain Osborne was waiting. So was a colonel from Marine Corps Training Command, Colonel Walter Hicks. Hicks had reviewed Keller's service record, had read Osborne's report, had also reviewed Keller's combat performance statistics. Hicks told Keller that his left-handed shooting had been effective on Peleliu, but it couldn't continue. The Marine Corps trained Marines to fight as units, not as individuals. Allowing one Marine to shoot differently created problems for unit cohesion. Keller would return to right-handed shooting. Non negociable. Keller asked why, if his left-handed shooting was more effective. Hicks said effectiveness wasn't the only consideration. Standardization mattered. Logistics mattered. If the Corps started accommodating left-handed shooters, they'd need different training protocols, different rifle configurations, different everything. The system wasn't built for exceptions. Keller understood the logic, but he also knew he'd killed 14 enemy snipers because he shot left-handed. Marines were alive because he'd ignored doctrine. He asked Hicks, "What's more important? Following rules or keeping Marines alive?" Hicks didn't answer directly. Instead, he offered Keller a deal. Keller would officially return to right-handed shooting during training and qualifications. But in combat, he could shoot however he wanted, off the record. No official documentation, no precedent, just battlefield pragmatism. Keller agreed. He didn't have a choice. But the compromise meant his combat effectiveness would never be officially recognized. His 14 sniper kills were recorded in after-action reports, but never attributed to his left-handed technique. The Marine Corps couldn't publicly acknowledge what had worked, because acknowledging it would mean changing the system. On April 1st, 1945, Keller landed with the 1st Marine Division on Okinawa. The invasion force consisted of 183,000 American troops against 77,000 Japanese defenders. The battle would last 82 days and become the bloodiest battle in the Pacific Theater. Okinawa's terrain was different from Peleliu. Rolling hills, rice paddies, fortified villages. The Japanese defenders used the same cave and tunnel tactics, but on a larger scale. They built thousands of defensive positions across the island, and they had snipers everywhere. Easy Company landed on the Higuchi beaches unopposed. The Japanese let them advance 5 miles inland before resistance began. On April 6th, Easy Company encountered fortified positions at a village called Kakazu. The village sat atop a ridge system that controlled the approach to Shuri Castle, the Japanese defensive center. Japanese snipers dominated the approaches to Kakazu. They were positioned in caves and destroyed buildings and trees. They fired, then disappeared. Marine casualties mounted. 19 men killed in the first 3 days. 42 wounded. The advance stalled. Keller was assigned to 2nd Battalion Scout Sniper Section. Unofficial title. The Marine Corps didn't have official scout sniper programs in 1945, but battalion commanders created ad hoc sniper teams from their best marksmen. Keller was paired with a spotter, Corporal Danny Reeves, 22 years old, Michigan farm boy. Reeves had never worked with a left-handed shooter before. The first time he saw Keller set up left-handed, Reeves asked if he was doing it wrong. Keller explained his technique. Reeves was skeptical but didn't argue. Their first mission was to clear snipers from a tree line 400 yards north of Easy Company's position. Intelligence estimated 3 to 5 snipers operating in that area. Keller and Reeves moved into position at 0530 before sunrise. They crawled through rice paddies to a destroyed farmhouse 450 yards from the tree line. The location gave them an elevated position overlooking the target area. Keller set up left-handed, using the corner of a destroyed wall for cover. At 0620, a Japanese sniper fired from the tree line. A Marine fell 200 yards away. Keller identified the muzzle flash. A large tree, 30 feet up, northwest section of the tree line. He ranged the target, 420 yards. Slight wind from the east. He adjusted his hold, fired. The M1 Garand cracked. The Japanese sniper fell from the tree. Reeves spotted movement in a different tree. 60 yards left of the first position. Another sniper repositioning. Keller swung his rifle, acquired the target, fired. The second sniper dropped. Over the next 90 minutes, Keller killed 4 more snipers in that tree line. Each shot came from his left-handed stance, each from a position that right-handed shooters wouldn't have chosen. The angles confused the Japanese defenders. They couldn't predict where the American counter-sniper would appear next. By 0800, the tree line was clear. Easy Company advanced. No additional casualties from sniper fire in that sector. Reeves became a believer. He told other Marines about Keller's left-handed technique, how it created unpredictable firing positions, how enemy snipers couldn't adapt to it. The story spread. Marines started calling Keller Left-Hand Keller, or just the left hand. The nickname carried respect, fear from the enemy. Marines who worked with Keller felt safer. But with the nickname came attention. By late April, officers from regiment headquarters were asking questions. Why was 2nd Battalion's counter-sniper shooting left-handed? Who authorized it? Was it effective or just eccentric? Staff Sergeant Morello, now promoted to gunnery sergeant, protected Keller, told officers that Keller shot, however, killed the enemy most effectively. Showed them statistics. Keller had eliminated 23 enemy snipers since landing on Okinawa. His kill rate was the highest in the division. Arguments about shooting stances couldn't override combat results. On May 11, 1945, Keller and Reeves were assigned to support a company-sized assault on Sugar Loaf Hill, a heavily fortified Japanese position south of Naha. The hill had been attacked 11 times. Each assault failed. Japanese defenders used interlocking fields of fire from multiple positions. Snipers covered every approach. Can one left-handed Marine clear enough snipers to let an entire company advance? Hit that like button to see what happens next. Subscribe and turn on notifications so you never miss these stories. The assault began at 0600. 3 companies, approximately 400 Marines, advanced on Sugarloaf from the south and east. Japanese defenders opened fire immediately. Machine guns, mortars, artillery, and snipers. At least a dozen snipers positioned in caves and ruins around the hill. They targeted officers and radio men first, disrupting American command and control. Keller and Reeves positioned themselves 600 yards south of Sugarloaf, on a low ridge that provided clear sight lines to the hill's western slope. Keller's mission: eliminate as many snipers as possible to reduce casualties during the assault. He had approximately 3 hours before ammunition, and time constraints forced the Marines to withdraw. The first Japanese sniper fired from a cave entrance 520 yards northwest. Keller saw the muzzle flash, ranged the target, adjusted for the extreme distance. At 520 yards, the 30-06 round would drop approximately 58 inches from point of aim. Windage was minimal. Keller held high, fired. The round struck the cave entrance, fragmented on rock. No kill. He cycled the action, fired again. The second shot penetrated the cave, hit the sniper. Reeves confirmed the kill through his binoculars. 1 down. A second sniper fired from a destroyed building 480 yards north. Keller swung his rifle, acquired the target, fired twice. Both rounds hit. The sniper collapsed. For the next 2 hours, Keller worked methodically across Sugarloaf's defensive positions. He killed snipers at ranges between 380 and 580 yards. Each engagement required precise calculation: distance, wind, elevation, target movement. But Keller's left-handed positioning gave him angles that the Japanese defenders hadn't prepared for. They'd built their positions to defend against right-handed shooters approaching from standard assault directions. Keller was shooting from positions that shouldn't have offered good lines of fire. But from a left-handed stance, those positions worked perfectly. By 0900, Keller had killed 11 Japanese snipers on Sugarloaf. The American assault companies advanced with significantly fewer casualties than previous attempts. They captured the hill's lower slopes before being forced to withdraw by counterattacks from Japanese reserves. The assault was considered partially successful. Sugarloaf wasn't captured, but the Marines had advanced further than any previous attempt. Casualties were 40% lower than the average for previous assaults. Battalion commanders attributed the improvement to multiple factors, including improved artillery support and better coordination. But Marines who participated in the assault knew the truth. The left hand had cleared the snipers. That's why they'd survived. On May 29, 1945, after 18 days of continuous fighting, American forces captured Sugar Loaf Hill. The 1st Marine Division had lost 2,662 men taking the position, but it was a critical victory. With Sugarloaf secured, the road to Shuri Castle was open. Keller had killed 31 enemy snipers during the Okinawa campaign. His total since Peleliu was 45 confirmed kills, all achieved while shooting left-handed, all against Japanese snipers who'd been trained to counter right-handed American shooters. Japanese after-action reports recovered after the war mentioned an American sniper who operated differently from others. One report from the 62nd Division noted, "Enemy counter-sniper uses unexpected firing positions. Standard defensive preparations ineffective. Recommend increased vigilance for attacks from non-standard angles." The Japanese never identified that the non-standard angles came from a left-handed shooter. They just knew something was different, something that made their snipers vulnerable in ways they hadn't experienced before. On June 22, 1945, Okinawa was declared secured. The cost: 12,520 Americans killed, 38,916 wounded. Japanese losses exceeded 77,000 soldiers killed, plus approximately 42,000 civilian casualties. The battle had been the deadliest of the Pacific War. The 1st Marine Division returned to Peleliu in July 1945. They were scheduled to refit and prepare for the invasion of Japan, planned for November 1945. That invasion never happened. On August 15, 1945, Japan surrendered following the atomic bombings of Hiroshima and Nagasaki. Thomas Keller had survived. He'd fought at Peleliu and Okinawa, 2 of the bloodiest battles in Marine Corps history. He'd killed 45 enemy snipers. He'd saved an estimated 135 American lives based on average sniper effectiveness ratios. And he'd done it all while shooting the wrong way. In September 1945, Keller returned to the United States. He was processed out of the Marine Corps at Camp Pendleton. His discharge papers listed his rifle qualification as marksman, the lowest qualification level. The Marine Corps never updated his qualification to reflect his combat performance. Officially, Thomas Keller was a mediocre rifleman who barely met minimum standards. His decorations included a Bronze Star with Valor for Actions on Sugarloaf Hill. The citation mentioned his role in suppressing enemy sniper positions, but didn't specify how. His left-handed shooting technique was never officially documented, never studied, never integrated into Marine Corps training. Keller returned to Spokane, Washington. He worked as a machinist for Boeing for 37 years. He married, had 3 children, lived a quiet civilian life. He rarely talked about the war. When people asked if he'd seen combat, he'd say yes, but wouldn't elaborate. In 1982, a military historian researching sniper tactics in the Pacific Theater found Keller's name in after-action reports from Peleliu and Okinawa. The historian, Dr. Robert Chun, was intrigued by the number of sniper kills attributed to one Marine. He tracked down Keller through veteran registries. Dr. Chun interviewed Keller at his home in Spokane. Keller, now 60 years old, finally told a complete story. The forced right-handed training, the mediocre qualification scores, the decision to shoot left-handed in combat, the bureaucratic resistance, the 45 confirmed kills. Dr. Chen asked why the Marine Corps had never acknowledged Keller's technique. Keller said they couldn't. If they admitted a left-handed shooter was more effective, they'd have to change how they trained everyone. That would cost money, require new doctrine. They'd rather pretend it never happened. Dr. Chen asked if Keller was bitter about the lack of recognition. Keller shook his head. "I didn't do it for recognition. I did it because Marines were dying, and I could stop it. That's enough." But Dr. Chen pushed further. He asked Keller to estimate how many Marines were alive because of his actions. Keller thought for a long time, then said, "I killed 45 snipers. Each sniper kills maybe 3 Marines before getting taken out, so maybe 135. But it's not about numbers. It's about the guy next to you who makes it home, because someone figured out a better way to fight." Dr. Chin published his findings in a 1985 paper titled Asymmetric Marksmanship: The Case for Left-Handed Shooters in Counter-Sniper Operations. The paper presented Keller's combat record as evidence that the military's insistence on right-handed shooting for all personnel was counterproductive. Left-handed shooters created unpredictable firing angles that enemy forces couldn't anticipate. Their natural shooting stance, when properly supported with appropriate equipment, could be tactically advantageous. The paper was largely ignored by military training commands. The Marine Corps didn't change its rifle qualification standards. The Army didn't modify its marksmanship doctrine. Institutional inertia was stronger than evidence. But some changes did occur quietly. By the early 1990s, Marine Corps Scout Sniper schools began allowing left-handed shooters to fire from their natural shoulder. The M16A2 rifle, which replaced the M1 Garand, was designed with ambidextrous controls. Modern military rifles accommodate both left and right-handed shooters. The institutional resistance that Keller faced in 1944 gradually eroded. Today, approximately 10% of military personnel are left-handed. Modern military training acknowledges hand dominance as a factor in marksmanship. Left-handed recruits are no longer forced to shoot right-handed. They're issued left-handed bolt-action rifles in sniper schools. Their natural abilities are developed, not suppressed. These changes happen without official credit to Thomas Keller. His name doesn't appear in marksmanship training manuals. His technique isn't taught as a case study, but his combat record proves something important. Sometimes the best way to fight isn't the standard way. Sometimes the person who sees things from a different angle is the one who solves problems everyone else missed. Gunnery Sergeant Vincent Morello survived the war. He retired from the Marine Corps in 1955 as a master gunnery sergeant. He stayed in contact with Keller for 43 years. Every November 3rd, the anniversary of that first sniper kill on Peleliu, Morello called Keller. They'd talk for an hour about the war, about the men who didn't come home, about the decision Morello made that night to let Keller shoot left-handed. In a 1989 interview, Morello was asked if he regretted breaking doctrine to accommodate Keller's shooting style. Morello said, "Regret? Hell no. Doctrine gets written by people who've never been shot at. Combat gets won by people who figure out what works and do it, regardless of what the manual says. Keller figured out what worked. I just got out of his way." Corporal Danny Reeves, Keller's spotter on Okinawa, also survived. He returned to Michigan, became a high school teacher, taught history for 32 years. He told his students about Keller every year when teaching World War II, made sure they understood that sometimes the greatest contributions come from people who refuse to conform, from people who insist on doing things their own way, even when everyone tells them they're wrong. Captain Richard Osborne, the regulations officer who tried to force Keller back to right-handed shooting, retired from the Marine Corps in 1962 as a colonel. In his retirement interview, he was asked about his career regrets. He mentioned several administrative decisions, but specifically cited his conflict with Keller. He said, "I was wrong about that left-handed Marine. I was focused on regulations when I should have been focused on results. He saved lives. I tried to stop him. That's something I've thought about for 20 years. Colonel Walter Hicks, who offered Keller the compromise allowing left-handed combat shooting while requiring right-handed qualification shooting, retired in 1958. He later worked as a consultant for military training reform. In that role, he quietly advocated for accommodation of left-handed shooters. His influence helped shift institutional attitudes, even though he never publicly credited Keller as the reason for his advocacy. The Japanese snipers who survived the war returned to a devastated nation. Some wrote memoirs. A few mentioned encounters with American counter-snipers. One memoir, published in 1953 by a former Imperial Army sniper named Takeshi Yamamoto, includes a passage about Okinawa, We prepared for American tactics. We knew where they would position. We knew their patterns. But one American was different. He appeared in places that made no sense. His angles were wrong, impossible. But he killed many of us. We called him Sakamachi, the reverse man. We feared him more than their artillery. Yamamoto never knew he was describing a left-handed shooter. He just knew someone was fighting differently. Thomas Keller died on March 8, 2006, at age 84. He was buried in Fairmont Cemetery in Spokane. His obituary in the Spokesman Review mentioned his Marine Corps service at Peleliu and Okinawa. It noted his Bronze Star. It did not mention that he'd killed 45 enemy snipers. Did not mention that he'd done it shooting left-handed. Did not mention that he'd proven institutional doctrine wrong and saved lives because of it. His funeral was attended by 7 surviving members of Easy Company, 1st Marine Division. They flew in from across the country. At the graveside service, one of them, a retired lieutenant colonel named James Patterson, spoke briefly. He said, "Tom Keller was the best shot I ever served with. He didn't fire like everyone else. That's what made him great. He saw the battlefield differently. And because he had the courage to shoot his own way, a lot of us made it home. We owe him for that." The Marine Corps never officially studied Keller's technique, never commissioned research into whether left-handed shooters created tactical advantages in counter-sniper operations, never updated training doctrine based on his combat record. But individual Marines who served with Keller told the story, passed it along, made sure younger Marines knew about the left-handed shooter who broke the rules and kept people alive. In 2019, the Marine Corps Scout Sniper School at Quantico, Virginia, added a brief historical note to its curriculum. The note mentioned that during World War II, some Marines achieved success using non-standard shooting positions, including left-handed stances. It didn't name Keller, but students who asked instructors about the historical note would sometimes hear the full story about the Marine from Spokane who everyone said was shooting backwards, who was told he'd get himself killed, who instead killed 45 enemy snipers and saved an estimated 135 American lives. That's how innovation actually happens in war, not through official channels or institutional approval, through individuals who see problems differently, who refuse to accept that the standard way is the only way, who have the courage to prove that sometimes backwards is forward. If you found this story as compelling as we did, please take a moment to like this video. It helps us share more forgotten stories from the Second World War. Subscribe to stay connected with these untold histories. Each one matters. Each one deserves to be remembered, and we'd love to hear from you. Leave a comment below telling us where you're watching from, and whether anyone in your family served in the Pacific Theater during World War II. Our community spans from veterans to history enthusiasts. You're part of something special here. Thank you for watching. Thank you for keeping these stories alive. We'll see you in the next one.